Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the Skin is In podcast. My name is Natalie Warren. I'm an esthetician and business owner. And if you don't know me, I started a six-figure aesthetics business in under a year. And I am crazy enough to believe that you can do it too. So if you hang around long enough, hopefully you will walk away from these episodes learning something new, feeling like you can conquer the world, and just feeling inspired to follow your dreams. Because at the end of the day, my goal for this podcast is to just help you boss up. So this is the Skin is In podcast. I'm back. Hey, what's up, guys? It's Natalie. I'm back with another episode of the Skin is In podcast. And first off, I wanted to say the reason why I've been gone is because I've actually been in the process of opening my first location. So if you guys don't know me, my name is Natalie Warren. I'm an esthetician, and I started a six-figure skincare company in just 1 year. And in June of 2020, I actually opened up my very first storefront. It is on the main street in Campbellsville, Kentucky. So first off, if you live in Kentucky and you haven't had a Skinspiration facial yet, what are you doing? Come see us. Come see me or Caitlin, who's our other esthetician. We would love to see you guys. So that is why I've been pretty absent on the podcast. And I'll get into this a little bit more in detail in a second, but it is very difficult to be good at more than one thing. So sometimes whenever you're focusing on so many things, and as like entrepreneurial people, we fall into this trap so easily. Like I literally come up with like 5 business ideas a day of things that I think would be great and would make me money and would be super fun to invest in. But the problem with that is it's really hard to divide your focus evenly on so many different things. And I kind of went into opening my spa with this idea of like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to crush it, I'm going to kill it, and I can just podcast my way all the way through it. That was not true at all. And so I'm so thankful for you guys for letting me take a little bit of a break from the podcast, because obviously I don't want to put any content out there if it's not going to be amazing. So I need to take a little bit of a break. And another reason why I needed to take a break, and I've been really open with like Kayla and our film guy, Austin, I was at a really dark point in my life right at the end of May, beginning of June of 2020, and quarantine in Kentucky was kind of ending. The salons and the spas were opening back up, and it was time to get started on my building and finally open up. And I don't know what it was, but this feeling of depression and guilt and all these like really overwhelming emotions just hit me like a truck full of bricks. Like it was just a lot. And it is one of those things, and like I said, this is kind of what this episode is about, but it's one of those things where it's really hard opening a business. It's really, really hard opening a business during COVID or post-COVID, and it is really, really, really hard opening a business post-COVID at my age, at 21. And a lot of you guys probably didn't know I was that young, but I'm a baby, and this is the first storefront, the first brick and mortar business that I've ever opened. And I was just overwhelmed with all the things that went in that I had no idea about, that I wasn't expecting. And that's what this episode is about. I want to tell you guys the good, the bad, and the ugly. I have wrote down some tips and just my best advice, and just like what this episode is called, the real tea on opening a med spa. So if you guys stay tuned, I'm going to give you guys my top tips. And on top of that, I collected some questions from you guys on my Instagram, and the last like 10 or 15 minutes of the episode, I actually want to answer those questions, because I think those questions are so valuable, and they're honestly better than anything I'm going to be able to talk about. So without further ado, the real tea on opening a med spa. And just to give you guys a little bit of background of me, I have owned my business for 2 years now. I started Skinspiration when I was still in aesthetic school. It was just a blog. It was literally just a website. I locked myself in my apartment and I created my website, and I just started blogging. And 2 years later, it has grown into an actual company. I have 5 employees. I'm hoping to hire more in the next couple of months. And not only is the business making 6 figures, the business is thriving as far as everything else that we're doing. And I really wanted to talk about that as well, because I think sometimes we can get so wrapped up in the financial goals, and you may be hitting your financial goals, but still failing at some of like your other goals in other areas. Like, yeah, we're making a lot of money, but is our customer service good? Or, are our services up to par with what we're charging? There's so many different things that goes into it. So don't get sucked into the numbers game. Even though numbers are super important in business, they're not everything. So that's something that I really wanted to touch on, because I remember whenever I was first starting as an esthetician, I thought that making six figures was not attainable. Like, I didn't think it was possible in our industry. I really thought it was just a sales pitch that people kind of used in order to sell their trainings or sell their online courses. I literally had a belief that it wasn't possible for estheticians to make that much. So that's not true. It 100% is. And if it can happen for me, it can happen for you. And that's the whole point of this podcast, if you're new here, is just me trying to kind of share what I've learned in order to help you boss up. So one of the things that I wanted to get into is, as far as opening a med spa, is the reality and the risk. So whenever you own a business, you are taking a lot of risk, especially right now in, this time we're living in our economy. Things are uncertain. People have lost their jobs. Companies that have been around for years, decades, are closing. And for us little new businesses, that's really scary, because it's like, okay, well, if this, major corporation is closing, how am I going to be able to start a successful business? And the first thing I want all of you guys listening to this, if you are an esthetician, if you are a nurse practitioner who's wanting to open a med spa, or if you're not really in the aesthetics industry in general and you're listening to this episode, I really want you to realize that it is possible for you. Your dream business can happen. Your dream life can happen. COVID is not going to completely change everything about our lives. It's going to change a lot. It already has. It's changed a lot about our society, about our culture, about our life. But I refuse to believe that this is fully the new normal. I think eventually things will calm down, things will go back to normal. And something especially that's important to understand about the United States economy is we've had recessions and depressions before, and people have lived through them. My grandparents have lived through like 3 different recessions, and it's one of those things where, the economy goes down, but it always comes back up. And I think that's something that you have to believe in, and you can't use the excuse of, oh, I was going to start this business, but I'm not because COVID hit and it's just a horrible time to start a business. I opened my first storefront in the middle of a global pandemic. And as hard as it has been and as difficult as it has been, I wouldn't take any of that back. I wouldn't take the timing back, because I always tell myself, this is kind of what I've been clinging to. And I really hope you guys listening to this cling to this as well. If we can survive 2020, if we can make it through this crazy year where like everything is turned upside down, just imagine what you can do when everything goes back to normal. Like, that perseverance, that resilience that you have as an entrepreneur or as an esthetician or just as a business owner, just imagine what you can do when everything does go back to normal, and the people you'll be able to help, and just how strong your business is going to be because you have set the foundation in a time that nobody knew how to make it through this. Literally, like, think about the top entrepreneurs, Tony Robbins, like, think about whoever, like, fill in the blank. They don't know what to do right now. So you trying to open your little skincare business and thinking, oh, this is never going to work because ABC, don't allow that limiting belief to stop you. But with all of that being said, I am not going to lie. There is a ton of risk that goes into opening a business. And especially as the owner, you are taking all of that risk. And if you go forth and hire employees, you are taking on their career, like someone else's livelihood, someone else's life is now in your hands. And that can be really scary. And that can be really stressful. And that is why you have resources like the Skin is In podcast to help you through the issues that nobody really talks about. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. I want you guys to understand that, yes, there's a ton of risk that goes in, but don't allow the fear to hold you back on pursuing your dreams and opening your business and just pursuing your dream life. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. So along with that, you need to have a plan. You need to have a 6-month, a 1 year, and a 5-year plan written down. This is something that whenever I hire a new employee or just whenever I do employee evals on my team, I always ask them, where do you want to be in 6 months? Where do you want to be in a year? Where do you want to be in 5 years? And especially if you're opening a new business, you need to have a 10-year plan. But it doesn't have to be written down and set in stone. You just need to have an idea of where you want your life to be in the next little bit. And I'm saying your life, not just your business, because when you open a business, girlfriend, it is your life. Balance is not something that I would use to describe your first year of opening a business. You're going to feel like you have no balance. So if you're at a point in your life where you really don't feel like you're able to give it your all, it just may not be the best time for you. And that's okay. It's not saying that you can't do it later on when things calm down, but if you've got other things going on in your life, maybe it's just not the best time for you. And I'm not telling you to not pursue your dream or to not do it, but it just may not be the best time. So make sure that you have an idea of the trajectory of where you want your business to go. In 10 years, where do you want your business to be? Do you want to eventually sell out and make it like a franchise and retire really young? Or do you want it to be something that you always are working at and operating and you want your kids to take it over? Don't just start a business with, I see a lot of girls on Instagram who are estheticians and they've opened up their own business and it kind of seems like the thing to do right now. And I want to personally feel successful, so I'm just going to follow in their footsteps and do that. That's one of the biggest mistakes you can make as a person. Don't let someone else's story be your formula. Their story should inspire you to create your own story and to find your own journey in this industry. It should never be like, Natalie came out of esthetician school and started a business and it worked for her, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. You can 100% do it. I want to help you do it. But just don't take that and run with it. Understand that everybody's journey in this industry is going to look completely different. So that's something that I really wanted to press with you guys. Create a 6-month plan. Create a 1-year plan. Create a 5-year plan. And this plan should include how much money you're willing to invest and how much money you ultimately want to make. Because money is the motive. Obviously, we're doing this because we're passionate, but we're doing this also because we have bills and we like shopping at Saks and we like going on vacations and we like living a luxurious life. And there are going to be times where your business is not making a lot of money. Usually whenever you start up a business, money is the last thing that you're making. But that doesn't have to be that way. So that is something that I really, really want to harp on, is just make sure you have a plan and don't get involved in something and invest so much time and money if, in 20 years you don't want to be doing it. So that's super important. Have a plan, write it down, and don't skip that because that's so important. So the next thing I wanted to talk about with opening a med spa or a spa in general is promoting yourself. I've seen this happen a couple times where businesses will literally post 2 weeks before they get into a new space. We are opening up our own location. We are opening up a new MedSpa. We are doing this. Come see us at, 1100 Cliffwood Avenue or whatever, opening June 1st. Okay, here's the thing. If you do that, be prepared to have empty books for the first couple of months that you're open. I don't know where I heard this, because if you guys don't know, I'm a nerd. I'm constantly listening to podcasts and YouTube videos that kind of pertain to business and pertain to my industry. And I forget where I heard this. I think it was American MedSpa. I think it was the American MedSpa Association. Somebody said this. If you are going to open a med spa, you need to have a minimum of 4 months to promote that new location. And some of you guys are going to be like, "Oh my gosh, 4 months! That's a long time. What am I going to spend 4 months talking about?" It's not saying that you're going to come out of the gate and, okay, we're opening on this day and we're going to spend the next 4 months just talking about our new location. You have to set the framework in order when that new location opens, so you will be booked, if that makes sense. So basically, for me, I announced me opening my first storefront, I think in September of 2019, and we didn't open until June. And looking back on it, I would not have wanted to announce it that soon, but I still truly believe in the 4-month rule. You need 4 months to promote your new location, the services that you're going to be offering. You know, are you going to bring new people on? Are you changing the name? You know, do you have a fresh website? Do you have that business plan that we were just talking about? That is going to be so, so important and so crucial in the success of your med spa or your spa or your medical aesthetics practice, you know, whatever you want to call it. Make sure that you are promoting yourself. So if you don't know about Facebook ads, if you don't know about Google ads, if you don't know about the importance of social media, you either need to, one, hire someone who is a specialist in this, or talk to me because I want to help you. So I would love to be a resource for some of you guys who are listening to this. If you were like, oh my God, I know nothing about social media, I know nothing about ads, talk to me. I want to help you. I know a lot about it, and I have built my business off of social media and off of doing those ads. So talk to your girl. But not only is it important to promote yourself and promote your business, but who are you promoting your business to? So this is where we all come back to knowing your audience. Oh, this is such an important tip I have for you guys. Know your audience. If you're a medical spa who specializes in like injectables, like most of what you do is injectables, you really don't do a ton of like skincare services and like relaxation stuff. You want to focus more on medical grade skincare and like maybe high level peels or lasers, or like I said, Botox filler, more of the injectable route. You may have more success marketing to more of an older clientele, you know, late 30s, early 40s, 50s, 60s, people who, one, maybe will have more money to invest in stuff like that, and two, people who are going to find more value in those services. And, you know, it's 2020, and obviously a ton of 22, 25-year-olds are getting Botox and filler. Everybody kind of gets Botox and filler, and you have Kylie Jenner to thank for that. But you may have more success marketing your business to an older clientele who's more familiar with injectables and maybe who's had injectables before and understand like the value in it and the value of picking a really good doctor or picking a really good injector because they've had that before. And you may just have a lot more success marketing to an older clientele. Let's say that you are a newer esthetician, you don't do injectables, you don't really have a medical aesthetics background, and you're fresh out of esthetician school. Girlfriend, you're probably going to have a lot more luck marketing to these 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds who maybe don't have the money to invest in Botox, but they still want to take care of their skin, and they want to support the new, like, fresh girl on the block who has like a neon sign in her treatment room and, you know, is just going to help them with their skincare routine and just help them relax. So know your audience, know who you really want to focus and hone in on, and you're going to be a lot more successful. And it all comes back to kind of having an ideal client. So an ideal client is the person who ultimately represents your business and who's going to be a brand loyalist for you. And sometimes people struggle with forming an ideal client because we want to sell to everybody. Even me, I'm so guilty. Of course we want to sell to everybody. I want anybody who comes into Skinspiration, no matter what age, gender, where you come from in the country, whoever you are, I want to serve you and I want to help your skin be amazing. But we absolutely have an ideal client. We have that one specific girl who we are marketing towards. And in the normal business world, like outside of like the spa aesthetics industry, we call this an avatar. Or there's another word for it that I can't think of, but there's a certain word to kind of describe what we're doing. Nike has one, Adidas has one. Every major company literally has an entire marketing department focused on their avatar or their ideal client. So hone into who this person is and sell to them. And everybody else will kind of just follow, but you want to establish brand loyalists. You want to have those people who are going to buy the skincare you recommend, are going to rebook, are going to come consistently, who aren't going to reschedule, out of nowhere, and who aren't going to respect your cancellation policy. So just make sure you know your audience and that you are promoting towards them, and know your area as well. And that all kind of ties back into making sure you get your services right. And that your services aren't like crazy expensive for your area or crazy cheap for your area. And people are going to be like, why is this person a lot more, affordable than the other person? So just make sure that you're analyzing your area and that you are promoting your business. Get used to public speaking, network, like go to events, like join a country club, join, a yoga studio. You never know where you're going to meet clients. Be an active member of your community. Now that you are a business owner, you officially are a public figure, whether you like it or not. So that's going to be a huge tip I have. Promote yourself, but promote yourself to the audience that you ultimately want to serve. So that's super important. So those are some of my biggest tips. I wanted to spend the last little part of this episode answering the questions that I got from you guys, because I feel like the questions you guys asked were literally questions that I was asking people whenever I saw them opening locations. So I wanted to spend the last little bit talking about some of these questions. So Browse by Taylor on Instagram asks, how much money should I have in the bank to take the jump and do it, to open my spa? Okay, so great question. It 100% depends on where you live, on what area you live in the country, and how big you want your business to be. So if you are somebody who's owned businesses before and you're really confident that you have a good understanding of the aesthetics industry and how it works, and you want to invest in like a beautiful like white marble med spa, and invest a lot of money into a storefront, and you just want to go for it, depending on where you live, I think any business needs a startup fund of a minimum of $20,000. And some of you guys are going to be like, oh my God, that's more money than I even know what to do with. And some of you guys are going to be like, girl, that's like nothing. Like that won't cover anything. And if you've opened a spa before, that really doesn't cover a lot. Whenever I started as a solo esthetician, which is a little bit different. A solo esthetician is someone, I didn't have employees. I rented a room. I went in, I did my own scheduling. I bought my own products, and I charged, my price. I still had my website. I was still an official business, but I was just a solo esthetician, something that is super normal. Whenever I started my business, guys, I literally didn't even have $5,000. I had to go get a loan for $5,000 from the bank to go out and buy a treatment table and go buy product and, buy all the little things that go in that you don't even know, as far as like setting up Square, getting a point of sale system. Do you have like an iPad to check people out on? Do you have, little disposable things? Like there's so much that goes into opening. And there's so many capital expenses. That's something else in business that I've talked about on my podcast before. There's a difference between capital expenses and operating expenses. Operating expenses are going to be things that are constantly coming out of the business account every single month. Capital expenses are things that you're really only going to have to purchase one time. So if you're listening to this and you are a plastic surgeon and you've been a plastic surgeon for many years and you're wanting to open up your own medical spa, your journey is obviously going to look a little bit different than the 19-year-old esthetician who's listening to this, who just got out of school, and your budget's going to look a little bit different. So it kind of has to depend on what you want, and you honestly just have to run the numbers. I think a minimum of 10 or 20,000 you need to have in a bank account before you ever even start thinking of a business. And like I said, it's just going to depend on how many services you want to offer, what services you want to offer, and but I think that's going to be a really good amount. And it may be even less. Like I said, I started my business with $5,000. I didn't even have it. I had to go get a loan for it. And obviously that was the best thing I ever did because I've paid that off many times over. But yeah, so I would say a minimum of 10, 20,000 having a bank account. If you have a little bit less, it's totally fine. It doesn't mean that you can't start. That's just what I would recommend depending on where you live. It's going to be a little bit more or a little bit less. So Amanda Buchanan asked on Instagram, what are your best tips for hiring a medical director? Okay, so with the word medical spa, there is immediately something that comes along, and that is a medical director. So if you are a medical entity, if you have a medical license, if you're an MD, a plastic surgeon, a nurse practitioner, it's going to look a little bit different for you as opposed to my estheticians or my business people who are watching this. And the one thing I want to say to you guys about hiring a medical director, and I want you guys to really listen to this: seek legal counsel. Do not try to do that on your own. every single state in the US has different laws surrounding who can own a medical spa and what services you can offer at medical spas, and who can do certain treatments and who cannot do certain treatments, and does the doctor have to be in the room, does the doctor not have to be in the room. It's such a gray area. Any attorney, literally, you mention the word med spa, a lot of them roll their eyes because there's a lot that goes into it. So the best piece of advice I can give you is seek legal counsel. Either find a healthcare attorney, so like specifically an attorney who specializes in healthcare, or find an attorney that you trust. Like I've had the same attorney since I was like 19 and I came out of school. I have so much trust with her. She handles, basically all my contracts, any type of legal issues. She's amazing. There's so much trust there. And she was the one who guided me through hiring a medical director. It is not the situation of, oh, my girlfriend Julie, who's a nurse practitioner, like she, wants to start doing Botox and she's going to be my medical director, or my boyfriend's in medical school and he is going to be my medical director for my new place. It's not that simple. It's different in every single state. Every single state has different laws, and it is a very serious thing. It is a very serious agreement that you are entering into. For me, I'm in the process of hiring a new medical director right now, and there's just so many things that goes into it. But the main things, and as I've said, I am not an attorney. I'm not a specialist on this type of stuff. That's why I always seek legal counsel. There has to be contracts, and there has to be some type of flow of money between the person who owns the business and the medical entity in order for it to be basically legal. And like I said, every single state's going to be different. Also, the main thing that goes into hiring a medical director is making sure that the insurance will cover you, and it will also cover them, and it will cover anybody who's working at the facility. And that is like the nutshell version of it. There's so many more things that goes into it. There's certain states in the United States that you have to be an MD to own, any type of medical facility at all. And then there are other states where, business people, estheticians, whatever the case may be, are allowed to own those facilities. There has to be contracts in place. You have to just make sure that you're doing it right. So whatever state you live in, whoever you are, seek legal counsel. That is going to be my best piece of advice for you guys. So that's going to be the biggest thing. Just seek legal counsel when hiring a medical director. Do not try to do it yourself, and do not just try to do it easily, because it's not an easy process. All right. So Skin by Annabelle on Instagram asked tips on how to gain a clientele. So I want to do a whole podcast episode on building a clientele, but the main thing is be yourself, know how to advertise, know what you're talking about, perfect your craft before you start building a clientele, because obviously if you're not good, nobody's going to come to you. And once again, find out who you want to serve. Do you want to work with more college students? Do you want to, market towards a bit of an older crowd? Who do you want to serve? And really, really focus in on that one particular group. Not saying that you can't sell to everybody. Everybody's going to eventually come. But if you focus on that avatar, that brand loyalist, you're going to have so much more success. I know an esthetician who on Instagram literally specializes in, she doesn't specialize, but her ideal clientele is like female rappers. So like Megan Thee Stallion, Cardi B, like all these just female rappers. Like that's who she wants to do facials on. And I'm so here for it. So, okay. So this is a really good question. Is Brow Affair on Instagram ask, what kind of financing do you recommend? So it's different for everybody. Some people, they get really lucky and they can have people like in their life finance them. If you do need to take a business loan out, I just kind of recommend, if you're ever going to take loans out for a business or, for a building or anything like that, just do the math. Just make sure that you're going to be able to make the payment on that loan. Make sure that you're getting a good interest rate, and just really look around for the best deal on the type of loan that you want to get. And it all just comes back to having a really strong business plan, because you never want to take out all this money and then, God forbid, your business doesn't go that well and you're left with this insane amount of debt and this payment per month that you can't afford. Your business plan is it's going to be the glue of everything. It's literally the foundation for everything. And that's why it's just so, so important. So, If you have people in your life, who are able to help you out, try it out. I wasn't that lucky. Anytime I've borrowed money, it's always had to be through the bank. So yeah, I would just, and whenever you do go to a bank, they're going to want your business plan. And this is another thing I've said before on the podcast. Banks and usually business entities, any type of like loan situations, they don't care about your dream. They don't care about your dream. They care about the numbers. So you need to make sure that you are going in and you can tell them, okay, this is what I do. I'm an esthetician. This is how much a facial costs. This is how many facials I can expect to do per day. This is how long it's probably going to take me before I have the money to fully pay out this loan. And as long as, the numbers are there and, you have the income for it, usually there's not that many hoops to jump through. But anytime you take out any money, like I said, I don't have an MBA, unfortunately. I don't have any degree for that matter. Just make sure that you have a plan to pay it back and don't get in over your head. That's the biggest thing. So this is a really good question. So babe.theory on Instagram asked, do you recommend an LLC or a DBA for a studio room? So it kind of depends. And for those of you guys who don't know what an LLC and a DBA are, it's basically like I'm not an accountant, but it's a tax situation. It's like what you are on your taxes. So I started Skinspiration. I was a DBA. So I was basically, what a DBA means is it's just doing business as. So I was Natalie Warren doing business as Skinspiration. I don't recommend DBAs unless you are literally just starting out. An S Corp or like an LLC is going to be a lot more beneficial for you in the long run for tax purposes. If you want to have any type of employees on payroll or commission, you have to be an LLC. But that's another thing. Have a good accountant. Have an accountant that you trust, because he or she is going to be able to tell you based off of your income and based off of your business style what you need to be kind of on your taxes. But for me, Skinspiration, we are an LLC. So that's what I am at the point that I'm at now. It's just one of those things where your accountant can obviously probably advise you better, but an LLC you're going to have to be incorporated at some point. So it may just be better to go ahead and become an LLC. It's just always it's kind of expensive starting out. That's the only thing. But every single business, if you're successful, you're going to become incorporated at one point, which is becoming an LLC, an S Corp, or incorporated, obviously. But once again, kind of like how I said, seeking, legal counsel, seek an accountant when it comes to your taxes. When you own a business, you can't do your own taxes anymore. It doesn't work unless you really trust yourself, but it just doesn't work that way. So that's a really, really great question. So another question that Cassidy Morgan with 2 N's on Instagram asked is how to transition from working at a spa versus opening your own place/salon suite. So as I said before, in the aesthetics industry, there's many like different boxes you can kind of fill. So I at one point was a solo esthetician. Being a solo esthetician is super lucrative. You're able to make a lot of money. The expenses are pretty low for the most part if you really know your business. But there's very little room to grow as a solo esthetician. And whenever you expand and hire a team, like for so long, I thought I owned a business. When I was a solo esthetician, I thought I owned a business. And whenever you are a solo esty, you do own your business to a certain extent, but it's more like working for yourself. Owning a business is having a team. It's having a company. It's having a system of technology and people that are working together. Like that's what a company is. And that is completely different from working just by yourself and being able to schedule your own hours and go on vacation whenever you want and all that stuff. Hiring a team is completely different, and even just going out on your own from working for somebody else. So let's say that, you've worked at a spa for a couple years and now you're thinking about going out on your own, becoming a solo esty. My biggest piece of advice would be, once again, create a business plan. Find a place that, works for you that is going to be attainable. So it's like you're literally not just working to pay your rent. That's a mistake that you never want to make. You want to make sure that you're actually profiting, because a business that's not profiting, is it even a business? Like, no, you're just slaving for yourself. So that is something that I think is going to be super important. Have that business plan. I honestly would recommend, don't do something if you're not ready to. So many people, I feel like, and I've said this before, they see people on Instagram like me who have, opened up this business right out of school. And once again, they think that, okay, because she did it, if I just do exactly what she did, it's going to be the exact same thing for me. And that's not true. Not saying that you can't do it. It's just that it's really, really hard. So like my biggest piece of advice for new estheticians and people who are ultimately like wanting to start a business, get experience, gain all the experience you want. You may be just as happy working for someone, working beneath someone who is that really strong business owner, who loves the business side of things. You may be just as happy working for them and doing the things that you actually love, which is skincare or which is injectables, instead of you trying to be somebody and be a business entity if you truly don't love business, if you love skincare. That's something that I really, really want you guys to understand, because they're two different things. Like I honestly, at the point in my journey, I'm getting to the point to where I don't really enjoy the skincare side of things as much as I enjoy the business side of things, because I truly feel like I'm a businesswoman, not just an esthetician. I obviously love skincare. I love helping people with their skincare concerns, but you kind of have to decide what you want. So make sure you have the clientele for it. Make sure you have the plan and just do it. That's also my biggest tip, is you don't need permission from anybody. Just do it. And it may be the best thing you've ever done. And if you fail, so what? Close. Just close. It's okay. You can start over. You can start again. And it doesn't make you a failure. It doesn't make you a bad esthetician. It doesn't make you a bad person. You tried to follow your dreams and maybe it didn't work out, but 9 times out of 10, it usually works out. So I think it will for you. And I want to see you succeed. So all right, guys. So that is all the time I have today. If you enjoyed this episode of the Skin is In podcast, leave a comment, share it on your Instagram story. If you are watching on YouTube, like this video. And another thing I wanted to tell you guys about, if you couldn't tell, I tried to kind of speed through this episode a little bit more because there is a little bit of rebranding going on with the podcast. I would really like to change the name, and I also want to start doing shorter episodes. So if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review. Please message me on Instagram at Natalie Michelle Warren, and I want to hear your feedback. And if you would like me to do a part 2 to how to open a med spa, please message me, because like I said, I tried to speed through this because I have a short attention span. I know you guys do too. So I'm trying to do shorter episodes. So I love you guys so much. I really hope this gave you some good advice and just some tools that you can use as you embark on opening your own medical spa or your own aesthetics practice. And yeah, so this is all the time we have today. This is the Skin is In podcast, and I am your host, Natalie Warren. And don't forget, why survive when you can thrive? Hey guys, it's Natalie Warren with the Skin is In podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, we have so many more out there for you. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, catch us on iTunes, Spotify, basically all the streaming services. And if you are in the beauty industry and you want to know more about me or training opportunities, or you're just looking to literally boss up, message me at Natalie Michelle Warren on Instagram, and I would love to be your beauty business BFF.